Welcome to Veteran State of Mind. I'm your host, Geraint Jones. Guys. We've had a few guests on this year, where I've got to admit it has been meeting my heroes time. Particularly, we had Dale Dye on, Captain Dale Dye. We've had Stephen Pressfield on, two guys who I've looked up to for a long time, and today we have a third guest on the podcast who is someone I've looked up to for about 8 years now when I first came across his book Matterhorn. His name is Karl Marlantes. He is, for me, the gold standard of writing when it comes to war novels. Matterhorn, I think, is untouchable. It's up there as it's one of the best. It's an epic book. I mean that in every sense, and it will go down in history as one of the best books ever written about war. By the time you listen to this, hopefully a lot of you guys will have got a chance to read in it, or at least start reading it. I wasn't sure about how to go about this podcast because Matterhorn it is such an important book to me. And it's not non-fiction, right? So it's about Karl's experiences, or it's been written from his experiences, but he made a novel out of it rather than actually putting detail by detail what happened to him. And I was in two minds about whether or not we were going to look at the book and then discuss parts in it. And I thought, you know what, it's just such a special piece of art that I don't want to do that, because one of the things that I think puts so many people off reading is that when you're in school, you get taught to deconstruct a book, which is it's like a car, right? You don't look at a Lamborghini and go, God, that's a nice car, because, someone's like, all right, look at this little spring that, is used in this part of the car. I don't even know what I would be, to be honest, because I know nothing about cars, except that they get you hot chicks. But my point being is that it's something that needs to be appreciated as a whole. So I 100% recommend that you read Matterhorn. It's one of the best books that I've ever written. So check that out. Everything's linked up in the show notes. It'll take you through to Karl's Amazon page and everything, so you can check out his books there. Karl did write another book called What It's Like to Go to War. And that's one we're going to be discussing kind of parts out of that today. It was one of these episodes where I put in a lot of prep with notes and things like that, but the conversation just kind of took a life on its own. Karl is a real thinker, and it was a pleasure to get to hear some of his thoughts about war, about morality. Honestly, it's one of my favorite episodes that we've done, and I'm very grateful to you guys, because if you guys weren't turning up and listening to the podcast, I never got to have this conversation with one of my heroes. I did get to have it. I owe you one, big time. As I always say, I love you guys long time. Thanks so much for being here, guys. Thanks so much for making this happen. I really appreciate it. And let's get into it, shall we? Please give a very warm welcome to Mr. Karl Marlantes. What are the kind of generally what's on those bookshelves then? So I know you've written about war, you've Rhodes Scholar, you've done the philosophy side of things. So what's taken up most of the bookshelves?
Well, I would guess a huge portion of it is fiction over to the left side there, and then right directly behind me is a lot of religion, Eastern Catholic, different things, translations of the Bible. And then over on this other side over here is history. I've got Churchill's, whatever it's called, the closing of the hymn. What was it? Anyway, his memoirs of World War II. And then also he did a history of English speaking people. And I've got, some military history. So I guess I would say it's half fiction and half philosophy and religion, and half quarter history, quarter philosophy and religion.
Well, I've got you on my shelves, and I know a lot of my friends have too. And I want to start the podcast really not just on behalf of myself, but on behalf of a lot of the guys to thank you for writing those books. I was speaking to one of my platoon commanders yesterday, and he was just saying that he helped me make sense. Because when he moved to London after Afghanistan and Iraq, he helped me make sense of it, and I know that's how a lot of the guys feel too. Today, I've been on to, because we've been going back and forth on email for a while now, and I've been in two minds about how to do today's podcast, because I love Matterhorn. And for those that aren't familiar with it, it's a novel based on your experiences rather than a non-fiction, like a non-fiction book like I did with Brothers in Arms. And very fortunately, you also wrote a book called What It's Like to Go to War, which is more is nonfiction. And I thought, I don't want to be picking pieces out of Matterhorn and then having someone go and read it. So for anyone listening, go and read Matterhorn. In fact, pause the podcast, go and read it, and then come back to it. I am going to be pushing the book on people before we release the podcast, because I feel like it is a work of art as such. And even though it is based on real experience, I think it should just be read as one and left alone, and that we can concentrate on what it's like to go to war. Because honestly, rereading this for the because I bought this book when I first read Matterhorn, which is probably about 8 years ago now, and reading What It's Like to Go to War, when I first read it, and we'll talk about this I'm sure later, I was in the numb stage. Yeah. And I just and I was like, oh, it's not really anything in this book. I just blew through it. And then when I reread it now 8 years later, I'm like, oh my god, this is gold. This is gold. Because now I've been through it, and we'll come into it. But I just want to say thank you, Karl, for doing this. You've helped a lot of people. You've helped me, and I wanted to get that out on the slate first things first. So cheers.
Well, thank you. It's an old friend of mine. He was a World War II carrier fighter pilot. Once said to me, he says, Karl, he said, if you're granted even one small victory in your lifetime, you're better off than most. And I sort of feel like I was granted one small victory with, the reception that I've had with Matterhorn and what it's like. It's been, I can feel pretty good about that if I get hit by the bus tomorrow.
Well, please don't. I would like more books. I know. So when you mentioned the World War II veteran there, I know you had some family who were served in World War II. I was curious to know what it was like for you as a child growing up. What war meant to you as a kid?
Well, yeah, I grew up in a little logging town. I mean, that was everybody was either a logger or a fisherman, both very dangerous jobs. And I don't know a single friend of mine whose father or uncles weren't World War II veterans. I mean, it was just, they were in the war. My dad was in the war. All my uncles were in the war. And so we grew up sort of with this idea that that's what you did if you were a member of the Republic. There was a draft. I mean, the draft was still there. Everybody knew that once you got out of high school, unless you could go to college, the odds were you'd get drafted. But it was a feeling of combination. It sort of looked like, like paying your taxes. I mean, no one wants to, but we all know that if you don't, you can't get roads and you can't, have schools. And so, so we do it. And the boys kind of had that feeling of generally, it's like, well, I don't want to get drafted, but, I kind of owe it. And it's only 3 years. And then what you had is, but if you decided to volunteer, you could actually get your branch of service because you were almost certain to go in the Army if you were drafted. And so a lot of the guys, and I have to admit to this, wasn't just patriotism or things like that. I played football. I love playing football. And most of the football players joined the Marines. And they would head down south to someplace called San Diego. And they'd come back to where we were when our climate was like England's. I mean, it rains all the time. And they'd have something we'd never seen before called a suntan. But they would literally come back after being at Marine boot camp. And I swear their shoulders were 4 inches wider. And they'd swagger up and down the main street of our town, 18-year-olds full of beans. And I just was like 17 or 16 and said, I want some of that too. I don't know what that is. I want some of that. That's like, like your organizations that are elites like that. You just want to be part of that. And then there's, can I do it? And so all of that was always just sort of the milieu of growing up in the 50s and early 60s in this little town. And then, of course, the war started. And I had joined the Marines before the war started. And because of just what I was saying, the combination, all of our parents, uncles, scoutmasters, even the minister of my church was a World War II veteran. So it was just in the milieu. And I think today, I like to say that something has changed. People refer to joining the military now And when we were kids, it was called joining the service. That was when he was in the service. Don't use that word anymore. And I think that that's a significant, I mean, I'm a language guy, and I think that I'm attuned to a big shift in the way our country's attitude toward military services. It's different when you join the military. Mm-hmm. That's just different. It's a different attitude of not doing it as, I mean, the mixture is still there. You want to serve your country. You want to be patriotic. On the other hand, you kind of get recruited. Well, we're going to give you, a bonus, and we're going to give you good pay, and we're going to get you a pension when you're done. And that's a real different kind of a look. And I think that going to the all volunteer military here has had unintended consequences that we need to deal with, which is the increasing distance between people who serve in the military and people who don't have a clue. I mean, honest to God. I mean, like when I did Matterhorn, my wife said, well, nobody knows whether a platoon's bigger than a company or whether a destroyer is smaller than a battleship. Nobody knows that anymore. I said, what? That's ridiculous. And so I asked around and nobody did. So I had to put a glossary in, so that modern readers, quote unquote, and that's not because they're modern, it's because they just are disconnected. Every woman in town knew that a platoon was smaller than a company because her husband was in one. That changed.
Sorry, I was going to say, you've had exposure as well, though, you were saying about the small logging town where everyone was in that military thing, but you've also been to Yale, you've been to Oxford, you've been to a lot of these other places now where military service isn't the norm, even like 20, 30 years ago, because it's certainly the thing now. If you do serve in the military, and I do think the word serve is important as well, I think you're absolutely spot on with that. That you're in a minority now if you serve, and you're 100% in a minority if you choose to be in the combat arms of something like the Marines.
Yeah, no, that's true. I think that even when I was at Yale, I got out of Yale in '67, which was at the height of the war. It was already starting this sort of thing about, well, you're just a damn fool if you're going to go in the military because you're going to go over there and get killed for no good reason. And I can remember, I've said this before, but I was in one of these 2:00 in the morning conversations with these, friends of mine at Yale. And we were talking about the Vietnam War, which was, raging at that moment. And somebody said, well, it's all just based on a lie. And I sputtered. I mean, I literally sputtered. I said, but an American president would never lie to Americans. And they all broke into laughter. I mean, that hit me right between the eyes. I was the only one that said an American president wouldn't lie to Americans. And they just laughed. That's the difference between an East Coast sophisticated upbringing and a logging town upbringing. And I have to admit, they were right. That was, Johnson lied. Yeah. And so did McNamara. And that's one of the things that I have a remaining, I don't get angry. People say, why do you think about, the war? I think it was a mistake. But I think that it's like, these people were World War II veterans. They had fought serious dictators who were seriously trying to take over the world. And so when they saw, Red China and the North Vietnamese, they just thought the same thing, and it wasn't true. They didn't get it right. I think their motivations were pure. They just were mistaken. But where I get mad at them is that they knew it was a bad deal, unwinnable. We were sort of on the wrong end of history, so to speak. And they knew that by 1965, and they would not admit to it. And the deaths in 65 were just a little over 2,000. And by 70, it was, 58 or 59,000. And all of those, the vast majority of those deaths occurred after they knew it was unwinnable. But they, it's politics. They didn't want to lose the election. They didn't want to look soft on communism, all this stuff. So I don't get mad about them getting into it. I just get mad at them about not getting out of it once they realized it was a mistake.
Yeah, I feel exactly the same way about Iraq and Afghanistan.
Yeah.
You know, when I was there in 2009, they'd already shifted the goalposts in, instead of, because, you know, obviously we went in there after Bin Laden, then all of a sudden we're governing Helmand province. But then I came back on R&R and the news was, well, we have to keep going because we've lost enough guys. I'm like, well, that wasn't the plan 2 years ago. And then lo and behold, I think we left in 2014. The Taliban just came back into everything. It was so like just like you, and I'm sure a lot of listeners, you know, a lot of people listening to this will feel the same way. It's people can go in with pure intentions, but then you need to hold your hand up and say, I fucked up. You know, we fucked up. And it might cost you your career in politics, but it's your career over somebody's life, somebody's kid.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, just one step further with that, it's what combat veterans need to do is try to find meaning. I mean, your friends are dead and some of your friends don't have any legs, and you go like, what the fuck? What is that all about? You know, why? And I have had to come down on the side of it's about your own personal soul. You cannot justify these intense experiences on sort of, you know, geopolitical grounds. It's like, well, we were there because the Taliban was there and because they've supported this and that, and because it unravels, as you just said, it starts to unravel after a while. So then what's the meaning? And I think that the meaning is, what did it mean for me in terms of my growth as an individual, my spiritual growth, my psychological growth? Did I overcome, well, like you were saying, coming home, and now what? Well, that's a huge growth, a personal growth. And I kind of lay my hat there that's where the meaning is. You're not going to find, I can't go back and justify the Vietnam War. I'm sorry. It just isn't going to happen. Yeah. You know, it was, but I can, you know, I was back at my old high school. They asked me to come back, and I'm in the library, this little tiny high school. And one of the girls come, you know, raise her hand, and she says, would you do it again? And, you know, I love these kids. They'll ask you the questions that, you know, you never want to even hear. And I thought a second, and I said, I would. And the reason I would do it again is because who I am today is completely a product of my combat experience and the friends I made. And it didn't form me entirely, but it certainly formed a lot of me. And I like who I am. I'm happy with who I am. And so I guess because I'm happy with who I am, I'd go back and do the thing that formed me. And that's where I started getting this idea that that's what it was all about. Really, if you get to the ultimate sort of, you know, what's the meaning of the universe kind of questions, what it was all about was forming me as an individual, the individual I am today.
Well, and how did that start? Like, what was instilled in you? Obviously, the sense of service, you know, to your country. But what were some of the other values that you gained from your parents and from, you know, from that community growing up?
Well, let me think about that a second. Well, it was a time when virtually everybody in town was a Christian of some sort or other. And that was just sort of the water you swam in. I mean, it was like you just didn't think twice about going to church on Sunday. It was just, which church did you go to? Were you a Catholic, or were you a Lutheran or a Baptist or whatever? And so there was a strong sense of you know, Judeo-Christian morality, that sort of thing, that was a backbone. I think that another thing that was really important that is hard to find today was a true sense of community. I mean, people knew each other. And so you kind of knew that you don't get away with much. You know, there's two... I love to tell this story, but it's illustrative. Our football coach, his wife came down with cancer, and they didn't have enough money to get to Portland to do treatments. So everybody in town knew it. He didn't say anything because he was one of those kinds of guys. And people just quietly started chipping money in at the local gas station so that whenever he came up, he was never charged any money for his gas, so he could take his wife across the mountains to get treatment.
That's beautiful.
That's okay. Now, here's the other side of it. when he had an affair with the high school English teacher, everybody in town knew that too. Okay, that's a small town, but that kind of an upbringing would suits you to a military life, because you don't get away with anything. I mean, there's no hiding. I mean, especially in combat, it's like, no, I think I'm staying in the hole because I'm just resting my eyes. You're staying in the hole because you're afraid to get out there. That's what's going on, and so you can't hide. And I think that I grew up with that sort of feeling, and I had a lot of I think alone time. I had some experiences. I write about them in What It's Like. I wouldn't have had these spiritual experiences if I hadn't spent just a lot of time alone in the woods. I think that that's important, that kind of just wandering around. I mean, there was this elk herd that I used to follow when I was a kid. I would follow it up to the mountains and back, and I experiment. How close could I get before the bull would start to paw the ground and scare me, and I'd have to back off. But I was all by myself doing that, and my folks gave me a ton of freedom. It was like, where are you going? Well, I'm going to go up on the 400 line. I'll be up over there by Gobbler's Knob. Okay, well, if you're not back by dark, we're going to have to send the fire department. You don't want that to happen. Well, I'll be back by dark, that kind of thing. They just let me go. And today, child services would be after them probably.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But were you kind of like were you quite an introspective kid when you were spending that time alone? Were you asking a lot of questions about not only what other people were up to, but what was going on in your head, in your life?
Oh yeah, no doubt. I was introspective just by nature, and I don't know what it is. I mean, you can get sort of mystical about it. I mean, I don't know if reincarnation is true or not, but I certainly have an idea that there's a good chance it is true, because some really brilliant people, William Butler Yeats, and people, they all sort of had experiences of it. And since I was a tiny child, I can remember embarrassing the hell out of my mother. We were on the streets downtown, and I'm about 3. And I started screaming at her, "I don't want to die. I don't want to die." And I can remember her, well, he's okay. It's just, there's nothing. And Carl, what are you doing? She started shaking her finger at me, and I'm rolling on the street screaming in fear. I don't want to die. Where'd that come from? I don't know. And I started to write my dreams down when I was about 8 years old. There was something about my dreams that fascinated me, and I'd write them down.
Yeah, you put those very in vivid detail. You have those in the book.
Yeah.
That's something that's always been a part of your life?
It has. It's just been something that I was born with, and I think, like I said, I was raised in a part of the world where that was not inhibited. Because I had plenty of time to just wander around, and. I always laugh. Thank God I played football, because otherwise all the kids in high school wouldn't have known what to do with me. But I was a little bit different. But I had a lot of friends and everything. But it was they would often just say, "What goes on in your head?" I mean, they would literally ask me that. What goes on in your head? And I go, I don't know, just stuff. This is always stuff happening in there.
Do you still get asked that now? Because I get asked that quite a lot now. Like, what the fuck is going on in your head?
No, the really humbling thing is that my wife will be talking to me, and she'll say something, and that'll start to unreel a whole film inside my brain. And obviously, I leave the conversation, and she'll literally go like this to me and go like, look at me. Oh yeah, right. Okay. Where'd you go? Well, I literally one time I said, I was trying to imagine what it was like to be inside of a whale. And she just went, what? I don't know what goes on in your head. So I try very hard to stay present, but it's just, that's the way my brain is.
Yeah, I know. I took, so I think something we might have in common as well is I was a little chubby kid, but I played rugby. So I was athletic. I was just fat. I remember once I managed to.
Did they make you a prop? Is that where you were?
I was a prop.
Yeah.
But as I got older, I went prop, flanker, and then eventually fullback. So I got trimmed as I went. I went from the front to the back. But I lost a lot of weight when I decided I wanted to get in the military, and I managed to woo one of the most prized girls in the school, and we went up onto the mountain together. And when she's like, "What are you thinking about?" And obviously that was a moment I was supposed to be like, "You," and then kiss her. And I was like, "Where'd the butterflies come from?" And the look of disappointment on her face.
I know geez, yeah, no, bad move. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So any young lads listening, if any girl asks her that, you say just how lucky I am to be with you.
That's right. There you are. You just get that. Yeah.
Give it a line like that. I want to dig into this because we've had author Stephen Pressfield on the podcast as well. We talked a bit about past lives because I mean, any of us has said we know what's going on as a liar, obviously. But I do think that there's something to this idea of at least not necessarily lives that kind of come back to people, but at least memories that either hang around in a location or hang around because sometimes you go into a place and you don't even need to be told that something bad. The hairs on the back of your neck stand up, and I don't know. I think there's something to the idea that there's somehow, some way, memories can linger in places or in people and get passed on, and you have that kind of episode.
No, I've had experiences of it. I mean, one of the more stark ones is I was with my daughter, who at that stage she was a teenager, and we went to Amherst, Massachusetts, and that's where Emily Dickinson lived. We'd never been in the town before, had no idea what the layout was even. Just arrived and went to a car park, parked a car. And I said, I wonder where Emily Dickinson's house is. And she says, oh, I remember. What? And she got out of the car and walked through all these streets and walked to her house because she had said she knew Emily back in the day.
Who's Emily, sir?
Huh?
Who is
Emily Dickinson, a famous poet. Yeah. I mean, who wrote in 1850s or Civil War time.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was like, whoa. Where did that come from? Like you said, there could have been some memory just lingering around, or she could have had a past life or whatever. And I've had these, sort of memories of one of the ones that was sort of more interesting is that I remember being on a horse in a cavalry unit someplace in Europe, and we had to take an artillery battery out. And we were on a bridge, and there was a sergeant, and he came along and he was talking to us. I mean, all these memories came right. I was in a sort of a girlfriend of mine who put me into one of these states, and we walked the horses down, and we walked them even when the fire was coming. And then right at the very last minute, we charged. And I remember, coming up underneath the guns because they couldn't get down, lower their elevation any lower. They were up on a hill, and my horse was shot out from underneath me. And I was explaining this to a guy. It was a guy at Oxford who was a military historian, and he said, well, what kind of stuff did you have on the horse? And I told him, and he said, what do you know about 19th century cavalry tactics? I said, I had nothing about them. I never even read anything about them. He said, well, that's the way it worked. Well, where'd that come from?
Yeah.
I mean, people say, well, you have to be scientific about this. There's no evidence. But on the other hand, that is evidence. I mean, I can't explain that, but I didn't make that up.
I just looked at my cat. Like, I found my cat in a road. I never taught her to hunt, and she's amazing at everything. So there was something in her that got passed along. I don't see that it's a stretch of the imagination to believe that there would be memories that get passed along from generation to generation. I don't see that as a stretch. Now, I'd be interested to know if you ever have, I call them kind of, because there's ideas, right? When you sit down, sometimes you're like, right, I really want to write a book about, and you start to think of ideas and you build it like you'd build a house or anything like that. And then there's what I call downloads, where you're just taking a walk or something, and all of a sudden, boom. And you've just been given, I had it recently when I came back from the States. I had a really long sleep, and when I woke up, I had this entire story that was just there.
Yeah.
Didn't need any work or anything. Do you ever have anything like that?
Oh, yeah. I think not only me, but you read about like scientific breakthroughs. People will work, a long time on a problem, get nowhere, fall asleep, wake up, and they have the solution. And A brain scientist will explain it that, your unconscious brain is processing all the time. You're just not aware of it. All that data is going in, it's processing. And then these nerve synapses happen. And then suddenly there's the solution and you wake up with it. And perfectly adequate explanation. The other side of it is that there's some kind of we're tuned into something bigger than we are. And that comes through us. I know that sort of a similar experience is that when I'm writing, sometimes it'll be like I wake up. I don't know if you ever had that experience. It's like, oh God, I'm here in this, back in my little office, and it's 2020 instead of in some logging camp in 1905, which is where I was, and that's my best writing. Is when I'm not aware I'm doing it even. I mean, it's an odd feeling. I mean, obviously I must be aware that I'm doing it, but I literally am sometimes shocked to find myself back here. Where was I? I was just in it. And I think that when you're in that kind of a state, something's coming through you, and you just have to be humble about it. It's not like, you don't have anything to do with it. You're just, luckily, if you sit your butt down every day, eventually something's going to come through.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Sometimes I think about catheterizing myself so I don't have to get up, because that's usually when it is. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to piss myself.
That's right.
And then you realize you've been sat there for like 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah.
And it's nuts. But like you said, because there's two ways of looking at that. You're like, I am an absolute genius and I could just come up with all this stuff. Or like you said, and this is what I think it is, you're almost just like a conduit.
Yeah. That's right. I think that's the right attitude, because quite frankly, think of the trap you'd be in if it was you, because then the next book you'd have to say, Jesus, am I going to come up to that again? And it'd all be on your shoulders, as opposed to the fact that, hey, I don't know, it's not me.
Well, I wonder if that's why so many people do end up feeling that stress, because I can't say that I've ever felt really stressed about writing another book, because because I never really thought about it like that. But like you're saying, pressure's not really on me; it's on whatever's up in the goo. Or
yeah. Your only job is to relax.
Yeah,
you can do that.
But like you were saying earlier, though, Karl, like, you are the man you are today because of combat. And we will rewind a little bit in a second, but that's got a part of that dealing with pressure as well. As you've dealt with calling in fire missions and calling in medvacs and stuff like that, then you can deal with the pressure of your book deal.
Oh yeah, no problem. I mean, I have to tell you, Christmas dinner about 4 years ago, my oldest daughter, she's now 37 or 38, puts her fork down, and you know when that happens, when the kid says, and she goes, Dad, and I go, what's good of this? And she looks at me and she says, nobody shooting at you is not a good standard for a 5-year-old.
All right.
Because that's the way, I mean, if things went bad, I said, well, nobody's shooting at you, get up, And I use that expression, nobody's shooting at you.
Right, so let's take it back to the military for now. I could talk about past lives and stuff all day, but some of our audience are like, they
didn't tune in for that, did they?
Yeah, they're like, I'm here for the war. Give me the war stories. So I want to know, when you joined, I mean, because you're probably in for a few culture shocks. The first one leaving a logging town, as you were saying, to go down to San Diego. I know. So you got Paris Island that people know from Full Metal Jacket, right? And then there's the Marine Corps training depot down in San Diego too, which I must say is a fantastic location. One of my favorite cities on the world. Yeah. So you headed down there. So that must have been a shock in itself, was it?
Well, actually, I ended up in Quantico, Virginia.
Oh.
Same deal though. I mean, the yellow footprints on the sidewalk, 2 a.m, which I found out later they do on purpose. I always wondered, gee, it's funny, the bus schedule dropped us here at 2 a.m. It's all scheduled because you're totally disoriented. And because I got into something called the platoon leaders class, and you go to boot camp and you're an enlisted man, but they train you in Virginia. And that's the only difference. It's still DIs, and the exact same. I mean, it's exactly the same. It's they're just trying to weed you out, and then if you survive that summer, you become like I became a lance corporal in the Marine Corps Reserve while I was going to college, and I'd have to go back in summers, but I didn't have to go to officer candidate school or any of or whatever they called it, naval ROTC or anything. I just because I'd done that program. But yeah, I mean, it's well, it's an initiatory experience, and I talk about that in the book. I mean, it's what drives you from childhood into adulthood, and the primary function. And I think that this is one of my definitions of being adult is when you move from being self-centered to being other-centered. And what boot camp is all about is they move you from self-centered to other-centered. I mean, if you screw up, you stand and watch the rest of the platoon get punished. You know, I mean, that kind of stuff is really important. They're trying to make a Marine or a soldier out of you, but the side effect is because you're moving into being other-oriented, you actually do grow up, and then of course once you're in combat, you grow up extraordinarily fast, and I think unfortunately you grow up in certain ways and you leave other ways behind. It's sort of a lopsided growing up, but there's a lot of very old men who are 19 when they come back from war, but they still have no life experience in civilian life. So it's an odd combination.
I should have asked, because you mentioned the team thing, and I do think this is so important at every stage in life. Is like how important was that with you with football? Like, did that transfer when you got to the Marines? You already had that. Did you see there was a difference between people who had played team sports and people who hadn't?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I mean the idea of a play in football or in rugby, we're going to do this and that and this. It's not you're going to do this, it's we're going to do this, and this is the way it is. And this whole unit of people is going to behave in this way so that we can get the ball down the other end of the field. And that doesn't happen in golf,
Yeah.
and it just doesn't. Nothing against golfers, it's just a different thing. And I think that the other thing that you learn is that your failure. Like I was a guard, a lineman, and if I didn't make the block, my friend George Nelson got creamed. Yeah. If I didn't make the block, George got hurt, and that's a very fundamental learning that for a kid. That you're responsible and you count. I mean, even though your name doesn't get in the paper, George's name gets in the paper when he makes the touchdown.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is that you do learn that you count, and counting, I think, is really important. And I think that's one thing that veterans miss when they come back. You don't count anymore. I mean, Jesus, you work for Starbucks and pump coffee. Someone else can pump the coffee if you don't show up. But if you're in combat and you don't show up, somebody dies. You count. And so I think that when people come back, what do you miss? I think that one of the things I missed was that sense of I count. This won't work without me. The civilian world works fine without me. And maybe it's a bit of an ego problem, but it's a true one, I think.
No, I totally agree. And we'll come on to more like post-tour stuff later, but just while we're on the subject, I will say to people who are looking at getting out of the military, find a team sport when you get back out. If your body's not too broken. Mind you, there's wheelchair basketball. There's something for everyone. If, like, we've had guests on the podcast who climb Kilimanjaro and they haven't got legs, so you can find a team sport somewhere, but that's absolutely something that I think everybody should do.
There's another angle that I found veterans find a lot of satisfaction with. There's like an outfit here called Team Rubicon, and it's just disaster relief, and it's just a bunch of veterans started. It was a couple Marines started it when a big hurricane hit Haiti, I think, and they just went down there and pitched in, and other veterans started joining them because it's that team sport, team feeling. But on the other hand, you're also doing a lot of good in disasters, and there's lots of organizations that are like that too. So it's sports and these organizations that help
Yeah, that's a great point. I'm going to make a note in my notes here to put Team Rubicon in the notes, because we have had a few guests on who are part of Team Rubicon.
Oh yeah.
So they do great work. I know they've been busy in the COVID stuff as well. So if anyone's listening as part of Team Rubicon, thank you.
Yes.
So when you were going through this indoctrination program into the military, and I don't mean indoctrination, even though the Marine Corps is a cult. I'm saying that from
some other Marines, don't you?
Well, some of my best friends are Marines, so I know it's a cult. You're a young man. Young men aren't really kind of very well known for thinking about consequences. Were you worried about going to Vietnam? Did you think you'd come home in one piece? Were you worried about the nation? What was going on in the nation at the time? What was the big picture?
Oh yeah, no, there's no doubt. I mean, I was worried. A couple of things. One, 5 kids from my high school died there, so that tends to focus you pretty closely. It's like, God, he died. You're going through the training and at the time during the training is realistic. Like, here's how you set an ambush. And then they would show you pictures of a successful ambush. They're gruesome. I mean, and I go like, God, in 3 months, I'm going to be there. And if I'm successful, this is what it's going to look like. And if I'm not successful, I'm going to be the one that the picture's being taken of, and so there's no doubt. No, I had my fears. I did. Then there's always that sort of young man's thing. Well, I'll get through it. I'll be the lucky one. But there's another part of you that is much more sober than that. It's like, it's an odds game. I think that modern war, one of the things that I talk about, I don't know if I wrote about it, but back in the days of King Arthur, if you were good with your sword, well, you had a much higher chance of surviving combat. I mean, it was up to you in a way, if you were faster, smarter. But combat today, if the IED is detonated when your car goes by, yeah. There's nothing about being smarter or faster or anything. Or if the mortar round gets hit by the wind and shifts 3 feet this way or that way, so it's much more sort of probability in modern combat, which you can't sort of they'll say, well, you have to rely on your training, and yeah, that shaves the odds and everything, but it's modern combat is just much more a matter of luck. I mean, I have to say it.
I always just find it. I always find it incredible that I think that so much luck has been on our side, because I look back on the tours that I've done and the tours my friends done, and I'm like, how wasn't there more of us coming home dead? I don't get it. And luck is a big part of that.
Yeah.
Somebody has a bit too much coffee on the other side, let's say, for breakfast, and that's putting it mildly, because a lot of them took speed and that kind of thing, and then it's shaking their hand a little bit too much, and that burst just goes to one side of you instead of dead on.
Yeah. No, and then you have to try and think about, well, what's grace as opposed to luck. I mean, and I think about that. Did I survive because I was supposed to write these books? That sort of sounds egotistical, but I'm used to that. but
join the club.
I know. But the thing is that you do wonder, why me? And that's survivor's guilt. Why me? And I think then that goes back to what we were talking about earlier. You just have to make meaning out of your life and make why you important. It may have been luck, or it may have been grace, but in either case, your responsibility is to make the sense out of it. You don't find it. You don't go looking for meaning. It ain't under the pillow.
Well, and that's definitely a problem now. I think people are like, oh, I want purpose. Well, great. Yeah, everyone wants purpose. But like you said, you need to go and put yourself in positions where you will discover what it is. It ain't going to fucking just come to you in the house because you say, right, yeah. Dear Santa, I would like purpose. All right.
Right, yeah. Yeah, good. Yeah. No, absolutely. You have to push it. And then, it'll happen. I mean, I firmly believe it. I think we all have a purpose, and luckily you'll find it.
Do you think did you like have on your mind before going to Vietnam, I'm going to write about Vietnam if I get home?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. All right.
I mean, I'll cop to that. I mean, ever since I was a kid, I wanted to be a writer. Okay. And I have to admit, it's like, well, if I survive this war, man, that'll be a story. I can tell that story, and sure, it was in the back of my mind. There's no doubt about it. That's being 19, but I think that I have to own that. It may even been one of the many motivations for joining the Marines, because if I survive this experience, and maybe I'll have something to write about.
I think it's just about seeking out story, though, isn't it? It's like you would because war is an adventure. Can be a terrible adventure, but it's an adventure. It's the biggest adventure that we can probably ever get on.
Yeah.
Short of traveling into space or something, it's probably that's what you could do, and then if you are somebody who reads a lot, and if you're somebody that writes a lot, you see things in stories, because I know you went through a bit of a wild period yourself. I guarantee you there was times in your mind where you're like, I know this is a bad idea, but this is going to make a great story. I'm going to do it anyway.
Yeah. One of my kids once asked me, Dad, did you ever regret any of the decisions you made? And I thought about it a second. I never regretted any of the decisions. I just regretted some of the outcomes.
Yeah, it's a good way of thinking about it. The great thing about being a writer is that you can turn the worst thing that ever happens into a profitable business. So there's anyone listening right now that's on the fence about writing, do it, because you go to jail, you'll get a book out of it, you get divorced, book out of it, everything works out well. So going over to Vietnam then, Karl, we have everyone has this from the movies and stuff. We all have an idea of what it's like. Anyone that's been to Afghanistan, Iraq will have a memory of what it was like to get on the ground for the first time. Or sorry, not on the ground for the first time, in the country for the first time. Do you remember any particular sights, smells, sounds, or anything like that from where you landed?
Oh yeah, vivid memories. I mean, the first thing is I went to war on a Continental Airline passenger plane with stewardesses in high heels and skirts. It was like, I mean, it was like they were sending us on some kind of business trip or something. I mean, we're all just scared shitless and packed into this airplane. And they couldn't serve us drinks because very few of us were old enough to drink. I mean, it was just really weird. And so that's a surreal experience, going to war like that. That ain't the way my dad went to war. Mm-hmm. And then we got off the plane. I was hit by the heat. I mean, I grew up on the Oregon coast. I mean, literally one day they shut the town down. The city council declared everybody had to go home. It was an emergency because the temperature went above 90 degrees Fahrenheit. I mean, but so there's that. I got to put that into
context for British listeners quickly. It's a reasonably warm summer's day.
Yeah. So that and the other one was it's a wonderful story. I love to tell stories. Obviously, that's what I do. But we were to join our company. Another guy and I who'd gone through training together, Rob Lynn. And so our company was out about 1 kilometer from the Laotian border and about 2 kilometers south of the demilitarized zone, way up in the mountains. And we waited on the LZ for a couple days because we couldn't get the weather to get up to the mountains to join the company. Finally, the weather clears. We get in the chopper and away we go. And I'm looking out of the porthole trying to figure out, where we are and everything. And we get close to this hill, and all of a sudden, about 4 holes appeared in the side of this helicopter, and holy shit, somebody's shooting at us, and that chopper hit the ground hard, and Rob and I and a couple other recruits who bail out of that chopper, and the first thing I look for is someplace to hide, and I just go diving off the side of this LZ into a pile of slash, and chopper takes off, and Tim Rabbit, who was the XO of the company, I can remember him leaning over and looking at me. He says, Are you the new lieutenant? Yeah. Well, they're shooting at the helicopter, not at you. Where's the fucking mail?
Oh, and you left it on there.
That was my introduction.
Yeah. I mean, well, that's actually really something I find really interesting, though, because you didn't go out there as units. You went there as individuals. And I think that, well, God, there's so much to get into on this. I mean, I think it's a terrible system to begin with. Let's say it like that. But that must have been so intimidating for you to come into this company of soldiers who had been fighting and knew each other. And you're like fresh-faced lieutenant coming in. That must have been almost as intimidating as the enemy, if not more.
It was. I mean, you talk about wondering if you can make the grade or not. I mean, you are all shiny. Your uniform's clean. I mean, their uniforms are rotting, falling off of them. Their shoes are bleached white. They're, you're going to go and lead them. I mean, no, it's pretty frightening. And luckily, I have, this sort of, I guess I have good self-esteem. That's another thing growing up in this little town. And so I had to go down and take over my platoon. And like I said, they're all, about 19 years old and looking at you. And I'll tell you, a 19-year-old will know in about 10 seconds whether you're their guy or not. I mean, and if you're not, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy that you will be a failure. I was at a reunion about 2 years ago, and a kid who was a squad leader, he was 19. His name was Flaherty. He came up and he said, the first meeting I had with my squad leaders, I just told him, I said, I don't know what's going on. I said, I'm pretty smart, but I have no experience. And you guys have been here a lot longer than I have. So you really got to help me out. He said they were all on my side from that moment on. And I kind of lucked into that because I was just trying to be honest with them. I thought I can't hide behind the fact that I'm a rookie. And I had a radio operator, Thomas, who had been there 8 or 9 months already. And I'd start to make, some dumbass order. And Thomas, who was always right next to me, he'd sort of bump me. And I know what he was going. I go, what? And he says, I don't think so, Lieutenant. Look it over here. And I go, oh, yeah, okay. And I just would listen to him, he was very important to me. And there's a wonderful video. It's about 6 minutes long that the AARP, that's the Association of Retired People, made of Thomas and myself. I start to bawl my eye, because I think that the important lesson is that it's a team. And yeah, you're the sort of the control center, but you're not the car. So you got to just understand that the rest of the team has a whole lot to say, and if you don't listen, team's not going to work. So I learned that early, and I learned to listen. And believe me, I still made plenty of mistakes, but I think I made a lot less because I had help. I mean, that's just that simple.
You just brought up something then that I've never even thought of before, and that's the fact, because radios and stuff have got smaller now, usually platoon commanders carry their own. I think we might have lost something real important in the relationship between the radio op and the platoon commander. Mm-hmm. Because radio operator by default would usually be quite an intelligent soldier.
Yeah.
It'd probably be someone who could be an officer themselves, but for whatever reason, socioeconomic background or whatever, was just not in that position. But they were usually pretty smart, usually knew everyone, they knew what was going on, and you have that step back from things that the platoon commander doesn't have. And I think we might have lost something there by taking that out.
That's very interesting insight. And I think you're absolutely right, because he was connected to all the privates, and when you're the lieutenant, as much as you want to sort of be open and communicate freely and everything, you're an officer, and you're treated differently because they've just gone through boot camp where they scared the shit out of them about speaking up in front of officers and stuff, and then you get in combat and it's just the opposite again. It's pretty bewildering, and I think that's right, because not only are you close, you sleep with them. I mean, you eat with them. I mean, they're right. They're attached to your hip. And I never thought of it, but he was obviously a conduit. I mean, I something like one of the kids would be, surly some morning. I go, what's wrong with him? And he could tell me. Yeah, well, his girlfriend just dumped him. Okay. But see, that kid wouldn't come up to me and say his girlfriend dumped him, but he'd tell Thomas. Yeah, that's an interesting insight.
Because the thing is, like, a lot of people say that, because the platoon sergeant can do that, but the platoon sergeant, I don't know if you guys call it platoon sergeant, but the platoon sergeant, the basically the highest NCO in the platoon, he doesn't have that kind of relationship really with because he's almost kind of like the wet nurse to the officer. So
well, and he's older usually.
Yeah. Exactly, and he's not connected with the privates because the privates are fucking terrified of him.
Exactly, no, they are. I mean, 3 stripes in the Marine Corps, you're God, So I mean, you're not going to talk to God. And again, it starts to break down in combat because you're all in the same boat, you're all in the same mess, but there's still that thing. So no, I mean, I think that's a good insight. What's the conduit, the truth finding conduit? The sergeant doesn't have it any more than you do, really.
And I think this is just illustrative of the way the military goes, though. They always look for what's efficient in the terms of, all right, well, we've got smaller radios. We don't need the radio man now. Right, let's get rid of him. And it's like, well, hang on a minute. What are we losing?
Yeah.
What are we losing by... What are we losing by getting rid of that person or this thing that's not necessary? There's not something that's measurable in weight that's carried or seats on a bus or whatever like that. And I think... if you're listening to this and you're thinking, because this goes for everything. It's not just the military, it's business or whatever. There might be someone in your business who's effectively that link man. It could be a lady that works in the canteen. You might think we'll get vending machines. That could be. Well,
what just occurred to me is that you saw these World War I movies where these British officers all had their personal servant with them. What do they call him? A Batman?
Batman.
Why is it called a Batman?
I have no idea because my great uncle started as one and he, as a private, worked his way up to a full colonel. But he did not have any Batman costumes, so I have no idea where it came from. There was no giant spotlight or anything.
And if the officer was savvy and a good human being, he would have used that person to figure out what was going on. Mm-hmm. So it seems. So that's interesting insight. I think that we have lost that.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. I think in general, I don't want to skip ahead too much, but I do have a note here that I do want to talk about is the way of like this kind of the way that war's looked at is it's fought by humans, but we never look at it through a humanist point of view of like, right, what makes the machine work? We go, it's equipment. It's equipment. It's this. It's that.
Right.
In fact, let's get into that now because one of the things you written about in the book is that you were saying that you witnessed once and it made you very angry when headquarters staff were getting excited that the men that you fought with had taken a hill. Can you talk us through that?
Yeah. We were assigned to take a hill. And there was another hill, maybe about a kilometer away from that hill. And the battalion staff had come in to, I'm sorry to be so cynical, but I think they wanted to be able to tell their bosses that they were in combat. They weren't, but they were close enough that they could see us through binoculars. And we lost a lot of guys, and it was a difficult assault. But when we reached the top, and had clearly conquered, taken the hill, where there was still cleanup to do, I could hear cheering, and the cheering was coming from that other hill, and it infuriated me because it felt like they were at a football game. I mean, that sense, and I get it. It's like, it's exciting. Is our side going to win? I mean, yes, it's great. Oh, there they are. They're on the top. I can understand that elation, but that's the same elation that, the fans have when the scrum half, does the touchdown, and that to me is inappropriate because a whole lot of people just died, to achieve that victorious feeling. The problem is that, you know, a lot of those people that were cheering were 19-year-olds, 18-year-olds. They didn't know. I mean, they just didn't know. And so my rage was probably, well, I contained it. I did want to shoot them, but you know, I didn't. And I think that it's because we don't train our young from an early age that war is not a football game. I mean, if you just look at the news, I don't know if the BBC does it this way, but American news media, the war in Iraq, day 73, you know, it's like a fucking football game. And I'm going like, this is not the way to spin this, really, you know. So that's what made me so angry about it, was when I first began to understand that it's not a spectator sport, and people should have just been thankful for the ones that managed to get to the top of the hill, and be sorry for the ones that didn't. And quite frankly, they should be sorry for the dead NBA or the dead Taliban, because those are just kids too. Normally, I mean, they're just doing their side, and you know, I'm no pacifist. I mean, if we have to, you know, kill people to achieve, you know, what I hope is our freedoms and our way of life, going back to the meanings of these wars, I think lately we haven't been doing that. I think it's pretty hard to justify in that regard. But yeah, that was that incident, and it has stuck with me because I see it all the time. War is a big game.
Can you have that insight without being on the sharp end?
Would I have?
No, people in general. Can we expect people to have that insight unless they've been the ones that's closing with the enemy?
You know, I think that it's unlikely that they can have it spontaneously, but I think you can teach them about it. I mean, I think that kind of stuff should be taught. It's empathy. I mean, kids aren't naturally empathetic, are they? I mean, they sort of just, it's my toy.
Shitheads. Kids are shitheads.
Right. Yeah. So empathy's learned. And I think that the same thing about, you know, yeah, you're excited and you want your guys to win, you know, yeah, that's kind of like a game. I mean, sports are kind of like war in a way. They're, you know, because you're just teams fighting, going against each other and everything. And I think that we just need to, we have 4th of July celebrations. I'm sorry to say it's independence from Great Britain, but
not if I'd been around, mate.
But there's, you know, fireworks and people sing patriotic songs and all that sort of stuff. And I mean, our national anthem is the Star Spangled Banner. It's about this flag that gets the shit kicked out of it by shells, and the British are shelling this fort in Baltimore, and Francis Scott Key's writing this poem, and in the end, you know, bombs bursting in the air and all this sort of stuff. And people are singing this and they have no effing idea that we're talking about war. You know, I think that we just need to get the kid, just when they're in school, say, okay, this national anthem was, you know, a guy on a ship. I think he was a prisoner on a British ship. Wrote this poem about whether his flag was going to last the night, and bombs bursting through air kill people. The classic example of that is Rockabye Baby. I mean, rockabye baby on a treetop. This is about a baby falling out of a tree and probably killing itself when it hits the bottom. And we blithely go along singing this song without a conscious thought about what is actually being said. You know, and so we do that with patriotic songs, and we do that with our history. And I think that I would argue that the only place that you're going to reach people is that they're not going to do it naturally, because our instincts are to sort of root for our side and cheer when it wins. Is you have to teach them, you know, that there's more to it than this, and watch this emotion, you know, watch this in yourself. This is an uncivilized animal part of yourself that we all have. There's nothing bad about it, but just don't let it get you. You know, we all get angry, but we don't all kill people. So, but nothing wrong with getting angry. It's just learning to control it.
There's a lot to unpack there. First things first, who's putting a baby in a tree in the first place, and how did they sell the song rights to that? That's the worst song I've ever heard. The sports one is an interesting one, Karl, because you know what? What do we do in sports when, like, unless it's a big star, someone goes down, gets hurt in football, camera goes away, started talking about somebody else. If you're a player, if you're a special teams player and you get hurt, they're going to commercial. They're
Right.
and it's very similar to sport. And then they're like,
yeah,
get him off, come on. And you'll hear people shouting like, get him off the field.
that's right.
Like, you know.
No, I know, brutal, really.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've quoted this many times, but it's like, we are not the top animal on the food chain because we're nice.
Mm.
All right. Humans are mean little bastards. That's why we're on top, and we have to watch it because we do it to ourselves. So it's consciousness, and it's got to be taught.
How do you teach without numbing people to it? Because one of the things that worries me is like, sometimes because I'll be honest with you, I know you have it too. I like to watch some fucking what I call war porn sometimes. I like to watch a bit of war footage from Syria. There's a professional part of me that's kind of like, oh, I wouldn't do that, or oh, that's a good idea. There's that part of me. And then there's the other part of me that's just like, ooh, I just want to see stuff like blowing up and getting like, there's that part of me exists. So he ain't going anywhere. He's going to be there.
Right.
But then in the back of your head, you're like, well, I wish this stuff wasn't happening, But it is, so I'm going to watch it. But then I know there's a lot of children who we're watching videos of cartel members beheading people with chainsaws and stuff.
Yeah.
Now, if you saw some people like one of my friends, he watched the TV show Narcos, and he's like, I'm never doing cocaine again because now I have an idea of where it comes from. And that shocked him into that thing of, I'm not going to then take a part in the drug trade anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But then other people see Narcos and they're like, fuck, I want to go and get a bunch of cocaine. And then fuck
all those women. Oh, wow, that would be great. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So and then there's people that like, people become desensitized to it. How do you strike the balance between teaching people that it's not something to be envied and lusted after and without desensitizing them?
I think it's got to go to the parents. And classic example is that they just watch Narcos and some guy gets a drill bit through his temple or nail driven through his hand, and then mom and dad at the commercial break go into the kitchen and get a sandwich and a beer as if nothing happened. They're modeling indifference. I think that if you have a child watching a movie like that, and I'm with you, I love some of those movies. I mean, I really do. I mean, because I have this animalistic nature. I have a warrior archetype. It's pretty close to the surface. That's not going to go away. And I'm no pacifist. I don't want it to go away. But I think that starting early, the modeling is that the parent should turn to the child and say, those are actors. And they're doing that so that we can watch it. And they're doing that so that they can sell this commercial after it's done. And we should try and remember that real people sometimes get involved in these situations and they can't get out. And it's really terrible. And now we're going to go get a sandwich. Just that kind of bringing that consciousness. But we model indifference all the time because we basically are indifferent. I mean, the adult knows it's a movie and he gets up and leaves. The kid has to be taught. We're not yet aware as a society of bringing this horrible side to consciousness. Video games. The kids do them by themselves in their rooms. I mean, mom and dad just have to, say, what are you doing? This video game. Can I see it? Yeah. Oh, okay. That's interesting. And there's this guy shooting. You say, yeah, okay. Well, in real war, that guy might, lose a leg. And I know this is a game, but see, that consciousness isn't brought in. I don't know. I just thought and if I ever hear you cheering about some guy winning a hill, I'll beat the shit out of you for it.
Well, you know what? Like some pain-assisted learning is not always the worst thing. You mentioned warrior archetype. I believe in the warrior archetype. I believe that some of us are born to fight. And here's why. A lot of people play video games. Everybody watches violent TV at some point or another. My mum watches people get murdered on a nightly basis, but she's the biggest pacifist you'll ever come across. Why? Well, I suppose I kind of answered the question in a way. I suppose the warrior archetype is like why some people play video games and watch those things, but only a few people go to war. Is that kind of how you see it?
Yeah, definitely. I think everybody's got it. it lies closer to the surface in some of us than in others. I mean, women have it, but generally speaking, it doesn't come out unless you threaten their child.
Mm-hmm.
I have it if somebody, calls me a name, boom, it's there, and so we all have it. It just lies closer to the surface in some of us than in others. And for those of us who is close to the surface, we kind of wanted to exercise it. I mean, I was real curious to know about war. I mean, I really was. I wanted to know, my dad told me some stories, but no, we don't know. I was wondering what it was really like. And that sort of thing is just in us. And I think that, again, a lot of people want to sort of shame that, it's like, well, you shouldn't be that way. I'm sorry. It's like saying you shouldn't be left-handed. It's just the way we are. And the deal is that just when is it appropriate for this warrior archetype to come out? I just wrote an article. It was in the Wall Street Journal about policing. And in America, we have a terrible problem. And I think with a lot of ex-military go into the police and they still think they're in the military. They still think that they're being warriors. They're being social workers. I mean,
they're supposed to be.
I mean, this is not the time to have your warrior archetype come out. Yeah. Now, if you've got the gang lord holed up in the house and the SWAT teams coming in, okay, that's different. But that's like 0.0001% of the time. I saw a statistic once. The number of encounters where a police officer was injured in an encounter, and then an encounter is a traffic stop or whatever, is like 0.0001. I mean, hardly ever. But we're running around with M16s, automatic weapons, and our body armor here, looking like Darth Vader. And I'm going, all that is doing is eliciting this warrior archetype. Yeah. The warrior archetype is good when you're going to war, and by God, you want your 18 and 19-year-olds out there with it full on. Putting them on the street with it is just really idiotic. Again, it's just consciousness.
And I agree. It's one of the reasons I think there should be a very high minimum age for cops. I don't think you should be allowed to do. I don't think you should have police that are under 35 years old. I just don't.
That's exactly the number I came up with. 35.
Hey, there we go. Stop plagiarizing my work, Carl.
Yeah, that's right. And it's just gut feel. And quite frankly, I would never want to go into combat with a 35-year-old.
No. Well, I mean, not unless it was somebody who I knew had always been like, not for the first time, absolutely. I know a lot of 35-year-olds now who are still chomping at the bit. And that's kind of what I wanted to say is like,
yeah.
One of the things I need to, well, I'm going to get some heat for saying this probably, but this is the first thing that comes into my mind.
It's your
so if you're not close to getting cancelled, are you even really talking? So one of the things that I was thinking about is, a lot of people we repress parts of ourselves about shame, whether that's sexuality or whatever. So let's use that one. There's a lot of people they feel they can't come out to their family and their friends because they will be judged for being a certain sexuality. It's very much the same with, I think, the warrior archetype. Like, amongst your friends in combat, you can go, hey, bro, I know what's happening in Syria is terrible. I know there's loads of refugees coming out of it. I know this, I know that. But fuck me, I want to go over there and get some. And they'll be like, bro, I totally get it. But, like, a lot of people think, oh, what the fuck? What's wrong with you? You just want to go and kill people? Oh, you think it's a good thing? It's like, no, I know it's a bad thing, but I do kind of want to go and shoot bad guys. And they're like, well, they're not all bad guys when they're indoctrinated. Yeah, I know that, but this is how I feel. I can't help that this is the way I feel. And I think that there's a part of us that expects that the further along the line we got, that this stuff will just start falling off us. And one day we'll go, oh, no, I don't want to be at war anymore. But I'm starting to think that that's bollocks and we always will.
Mm-hmm.
What's your kind of take on that?
Well, a couple of things occurred to me as you were talking. First of all, the one thing that dies off is testosterone. Right. When you hit 60, it's starting to not be where it was when you were 25. I mean, and that does count, right. In terms of the aggression. There's a natural sort of way that dies. That I don't think that's psychology. I think that's physiology. But absolutely. I mean, I'm still that way. I mean, I mean, I'm going to admit things. I mean, like some guy did something that I didn't like. He was a politician, and I, in my mind, called in an airstrike on him. I mean, I called in an airstrike and I napalmed the son of a bitch. And I just, it was just all of this went in my head. I'm 75 years old. What are you doing?
I get it, man.
But it's there. It's there. The difference is that I'm not going to act out on it. I'm able to sort of see that it's there, and because I've seen myself do things that I don't really feel like were very nice. The other thing that we have to become aware of is that these fighting warrior instincts developed, over several 100,000 years, when all we had was our hands and maybe a rock. So that when the warrior instinct comes out, there's not going to be much collateral damage. I mean, you hit a guy with a rock, you're not going to hit anybody else. But if you hit them with artillery shells, there's going to be all kinds of it. Same instinct, but the technology has made the I guess you'd call it the collateral damage from the warlike act way beyond what nature ever was designed for. And again, the only way to stop that is to say, look, the instinct is there, and it's a good one. I mean, it protects your family. It protects you. It does good stuff. But if that instinct is unchecked, because of what the destruction we can do now, it's not just our hands and a rock. I mean, it's God, an infantry squad leader can call in B-52s. I mean, it's unbelievable what can happen. I mean, it's just the power is just incredible. People don't think about that. So the instinct has to be accepted, and I think even honored. It's a good instinct, but you have to watch it when it's applied with the technology we have today.
And in our own lives as well as veterans, I think, to be honest, we should give ourselves a pat on the back for the times where we don't. Because, like you mentioned, the politician, the napalm, which put a smile on my face. Because there's not really a day goes by that I don't want to hang a politician, but I don't go out and hang a politician. Yeah. And I think that's something that really, as a veteran community, for all different wars, I think we should, we've gone from killing strangers in their backyard to not doing it in our own homes, even though there's probably a point every day where we want to beat the crap out of someone. We don't. And I think we should give ourselves, a little pat on the back for it.
I think so. I think that is something that we should do. And I agree with that. And the more you encourage that, the more likely it is to happen. A lot of that comes from talking. I mean, like this podcast is great because, we're talking honestly and people can hear it and they can agree or disagree, but there'll be a lot of people that say, I wanted to napalm the shit out of people several times, it's okay. But it's also pat on the back. You didn't do it, did you? Because you knew it was inappropriate.
All right, guys, we are going to hit the pause button for 1 second because we are brought to you today by Combat Fuel. You know Combat Fuel by now, guys. If you haven't tried them, what are you waiting for? I use the pre-workout. I use the pump-up. I like to think that I'm looking better the last couple of months, guys. I'm just going to put it out there. I think that I'm getting into better shapes. Why? Because my workouts have been more focused and intense, and I put that down to using the pump-up because, to be honest, what makes you train harder than seeing some nice pumpy... I like it when your veins start to pop out in the gym. They start to burst out from underneath the skin. That's what I like. It drives me on. And I started it off. I was just doing it a little bit to begin with, but now over time every session I am mixing half a scoop of pre-workout, Combat Fuel pre-workout. I'm mixing half a scoop of that with 2 scoops of the pump up, and it's going well. Abs are starting to come back a bit. Don't know how long that's going to happen with winter, but there we go. So I've been doing that, guys, and I've also been drinking the vegan protein. And not only drinking, sometimes I take a scoop, I put 150 ml or 100 ml, depending on how thick I want it, of almond milk in there. I'll whisk it up, make myself a nice little mousse, aka souffle. So that's what I've been doing, guys. I can't recommend the vegan protein enough. The taste is mint, and it doesn't give me the flatulence. Google it if you don't know what that means. For the that I get with whey protein shakes and that kind of thing, guys. So check them out at Combat Fuel. If you want money off, use the code VSOM, VSOM. Use that at checkout. You'll get some monies off, all right? And then you can spend that money in the Royal British Legion shop. Wow, what an amazing segue, guys. The Royal British Legion, I've been supporting veterans and their families for over 100 years. They support this podcast, guys. They don't just support this podcast, they enable this podcast, right? If I was a drug user, which I was, but if I was one, they would be that friend of yours that always turns up with a few bags and is like, oh, come on, guys, we can do it. They're an absolute enabler. And they're in need of your help, guys. They are in need of your help. It's a tough year for everyone. Coronavirus, COVID, fucking global conspiracy, whatever you want to call it, whatever you want to think of it, whatever the reasons you believe it's happening, the fact is that it has impacted the money coming in to the Royal British Legion, because obviously the poppy appeal could not be held in the usual way. And also, it's putting people out of work. A lot of those people are veterans or their veteran families. Small businesses are going under at a massive rate. And by the way, while we're on that subject, please support local businesses, guys. I don't want to hear you complaining about local businesses going out if you're going to co-op instead of going to your local business, right? So while we're on the subject, let's support local businesses. Right, now back to the poppy appeal. Guys, yeah, so there's going to be a lot of people, mental health, obviously, a lot of people are suffering this year because they've been locked up in their houses like animals. People need help, guys. So the poppy appeal needs to raise that money because a lot of their Royal British Legion's resources come from the poppy appeal. So how can we support the poppy appeal while we are locked up in our houses like animals? You can do it by going to at Royal British Legion or royalbritishlegion.com. Or .org.uk, I should say. It's all linked in the show notes, guys. They got the poppy store on there. You can go in there, get your poppies. They got all kinds of poppy merch, Ali poppy merch. Go in there, guys. Check it out. And if you can't afford anything, guys, because I know a lot of people are hurting financially right now. And at the end of the day, the Royal British Legion would not want you going into debt to have to support them. Okay, so I want to put that out there. If you've got the money and you want to support them, great. But don't go putting yourself into a bad position because that's going to benefit nobody. Even though obviously everyone appreciates the intention behind it, but it's just not a good idea, guys. Practically, all right. So the ways you can help though: share the word, spread the word. You can go to the website, guys, and there's all kinds of ideas to help on there. Okay, it is massively important that we do this, guys. Honestly, massively important. I am going to be putting up a few items for auction. So keep an eye out for those. They're going to be on social media. Auction a few things off. We're going to have some books on there. Got t-shirts. We got some stuff to auction off. We're going to raise some money for the poppy appeal, guys. So let's get behind it. Let's support everyone. One big fucking team. One big happy team. All right, guys. Let's get back in the podcast, shall we? Thanks for listening. I appreciate you. And cheers for everything you're doing to help support the Royal British Legion. So one of the things you kind of pose in your book is the question of how can you return home if you never left? All right, what do you mean by that? And do you still feel the same? Do you still feel the same way about it now as you did when you wrote the book?
Yes, I do. It's even worse today than it was. I talk a lot about if you're going to enter the space where you're killing people, I say that's a sacred space. I mean, religion is about death. I mean, if we didn't die, I don't think anybody'd be worried about what happens afterwards, obviously, and that's what religion is about to a large extent. And if you merge these two worlds, it's psychologically quite damaging. You have to get yourself into a different frame of mind to be the weapon of your country, which is what you are. And to act like that, you have to be in a very different frame of mind. You have to, in the old days, you would actually get on a ship and then you would go someplace else. And, you would have, different uniforms. And there were psychological symbols that said, I am leaving normal civilian life. and I am now going into what I call the battle space, or the I got a little artistic. I call it the Temple of Mars, but it is where Mars reigns, where the war god reigns, and the war god doesn't reign at home, thankfully.
Yeah.
So it used to not be thought about because the technology was the way it was. My dad got on a boat and went to England, and then he landed in Normandy, and then when he came home, came home on a boat. It was a long time, and my mother he didn't know I was born until 3 months after. He was in the Battle of the Bulge, and he got some kind of message from the Red Cross. Congratulations, you have a son. How different. He was in a separate space where he was involved in the killing. Today, I don't know what the British Army is like, but God, the American Army and the Marines are falling into it just as bad. They bring bowling alleys with them. It's just like McDonald's and Pizza Huts. It's like America just went to Afghanistan. So there's it's like all the comforts of home. And I'm going like, well, I understand that you want the comforts of home. Who doesn't? But on the other hand, the psychological issues are enormous because you're no longer separating the civilian life from the life where Mars is reigning. And drone operators are the epitome of it. They literally go to work, commuter traffic. Some guy says, "I'll pull the trigger." They kill some hopefully Taliban leader. And then they go home and take their daughter to ballet class or their son to soccer practice. And it's got to be enormously confusing. And then what happens is it starts to bleed over. Look at the policing. We were just talking about policing. Suddenly the police are more like military. And it's because the symbols are bleeding over. The police are dressing like military. Military are dressing. I had a meeting of some Marine Corps generals, and they put me up in a hotel right next to the Pentagon. So I went down for breakfast, the usual horrible breakfast buffet, and the place was full of people in what we called, camouflage utilities. I don't know, but anyway, fatigues, whatever they're called, combat gear. They were there, getting their coffee and their bacon and everything. And they were dressed in combat boots and everything. And I talked to a couple, "Where are you going?" "Oh, I work at the Pentagon." "What do you do?" They sit at a desk and shuffle papers. Why aren't they in Class A's? Why aren't they in civilian style uniforms? See, they're in combat gear. And I'm going, this is weird. This is a bleeding over of the two worlds that is psychologically damaging because, like I said, you start to get confused psychologically. I'm now doing something special and different, and I hope temporary, as opposed to this just goes on all the time. And again, when you have wars that have lasted 20 years, I think the last time England was in a war like that was probably the Napoleonic Wars. I think entire generations just grew up, you just, go off and fight Napoleon. And,
Yeah.
But 20 years is a long time. And there's the whole generations that have grown up with knowing nothing else. And it's just bleeding back and forth. It becomes normal life. It should never be normal life. It should always be special. And I think that these symbols and these ways that we used to unconsciously be able to separate it have to be consciously taken under now, because you can't come home if you haven't left. And I think that you can't leave it behind if it looks the same. You can go bowling, at some air base in Afghanistan. You go bowling at your local bowling alley. It's the same activity. Something in your psyche is going to react differently than if now I'm bowling with my friends and wow, thank God I'm not fighting anymore. So I think it's a psychological, symbolic sort of a tool that we're screwing up.
I do think with the bowling alleys and stuff, I think air crews and stuff probably get to use them. I don't know if grunts get to use those. I think they're creature comforts that did you call them REMFs? Or what did you call the people in the rear?
Yeah, rear echelon motherfuckers.
Yeah. So they get to use them. But the fact is I think the main one is the communication home.
Oh yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So people are on that because there'd always be that guy, especially in Iraq where we were in bigger bases. In Afghanistan, you didn't have communications because we were out like in little checkpoints and stuff, which was great. It was actually probably way better for us because you spent all your time talking shit through with your friends and stuff. Yeah. But guaranteed in Iraq, someone's got problems going on at home. As soon as you're off that fucking mission, they're on the phone in internet cabins all night. Do you think their mind is on that mission then when they're going out the gate? Absolutely not. So from a tactical point of view, it's not a good thing. But then absolutely not for a psychological one. Psychological one either. It's all done out of good intentions, but it's and what I tell you another one, Carl. I'd love to know your opinion about this. Is because I've always thought the idea of doing this rotation of. Because basically what happened in Iraq and Afghanistan is our units, if you were a British soldier, you do 6 months in Iraq or Afghanistan, you come back, you'd have some leave, you'd start the training cycle for the next one, you go back. And you do that. And I've got friends that have gone like 6 tours like that or more every year. 6 months away, pre-deployment cycle, get some leave when you come back, pre-deployment cycle, another 6 months away. How are you ever in the Second World War, it was like, right, here's the fucking enemy. Yeah. When the war's finished, you're coming home. I would have much preferred that. I know I hear some people say they wouldn't have. I'm like, well, you could have signed off and left. Do your bit and then don't come back. But I think for a lot of other people, this dipping your toe in and out was terrible.
No, I agree. And I think that what that comes, one of the issues of that is this confusion between police and military again. The police go to work every day. They go to the precinct house and they go to the neighborhood and then they come back and then they go back and they come back and they go back because they're doing something very different. We're taking warriors and we're trying to make them behave like police. We're trying to sort of keep the peace in Afghanistan. We're not defeating anybody. I mean, who are we going after? Well, we're trying to keep the peace is what we're trying to do. That's police work. There is no end to that war until you kill every Taliban leader. Well, then you start to get practical. It's like, well, that's not going to work, is it? Because they're just going to always be popping up. And so maybe the answer here isn't a military answer. Yeah. I kind of am with you 100% that if you can't define the enemy and say, when this enemy's gone, then you come home, you don't have a military situation. And you're being an idiot to send soldiers to do that, especially for 20 years. At some point, wouldn't you say, well, maybe this isn't the right answer, And we confuse, our roles. And I think that, again, history, the British were sort of the police of the world until the Americans ended up doing it. And it's a very bad position to be in. I think it's, especially to try to use military answers for it.
But I think we were a lot more honest about it. We called it what it was, an empire. We never said we never said we're the world police and we're doing this to help everyone. We said we are the empire, we are the center of the empire, and we're having you good. We're having you good shit. So, I know. And it's if you don't like it, you want to meet these guys in red coats because they might not have done that well in America, but everywhere else they did pretty bloody well.
Yeah.
And that's the difference now. It's like, oh well, we're policing. And people know it's not policing, and when you've got an Abrams, when you can't go out into a city without an Abrams tank in front of your Bradley infantry fighting vehicles, it's not policing. You ain't kidding nobody. Yeah. But also I do, like you, I really believe in the importance of words, or the importance of language and stuff, because if you're part of it is like, one thing is it undermines how soldiers feel about themselves because they're like, well, I shouldn't feel that I did anything because I didn't go to war like my granddad. I was just doing a policing action. It's like, well, you did get shot at 100 times while you were there. It's like, so there's that kind of side to it, but also it's the public perception. I remember coming back and look, my ego is involved in this. I'll put it out there. I came back from Iraq, 2007, as you know, it was a bad time out there. I came back, saw the girl that I'd always liked in school. I thought, now was the time. I'm a war hero. So I went to tell her. I was like, she's like, oh, I haven't seen your face. I've been in Iraq. And I thought she'd be like, oh my God, my hero. And she was like, oh, I've heard it's all right there, isn't it? It's Afghanistan where all the fighting's going on. But that was the public perception at home. They didn't realise we were losing more blokes in Iraq in 2006, 2007 we were in Afghanistan because they were told it was a policing action.
It's right.
And that those words matter.
They do. Clearly, yeah. I think they do. Well, public perception is comes directly from the politicians again who frame it, and they don't like to frame it in terms of war because you can win and lose wars. You basically can't lose a police action.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point. So you talked about in the book you met and I couldn't believe this. I had to do a double take on this when I went through that you met like Joseph Campbell, the mythologist, in a bar. To my whatever the word is thing, I only recently came across Joseph Campbell. Jack Carr, author, Navy SEAL and author, talked about him on the podcast. So I'm reading the Hero with 1,000 Faces at the moment, and I couldn't believe that you saw him in a bar. And had this conversation when you were going through this kind of existential crisis.
Yeah.
Can you talk us through that meeting, because I think a very important point comes out of it.
Yeah. Well, Joseph Campbell is a famous mythologist, and when this happened, it was in the 80s, early 80s, and he wasn't quite as famous because he hadn't done Star Wars yet. And I mean, for those who don't know, he's the guy behind the mythology of Star Wars. Lucas is very involved in him, and he actually had him on the set. So he's his mythological sort of archetypal take on the world is part of that. But I had been reading a lot of Jungian psychology, and so then I got into The Masks of God, which is a 4-volume work, and it's really good. So if you finish The Hero of 1,000 Faces, The Masks of God is next, and it's really good. But I was in a bar, and it was at this stage that I was in full-blown post-traumatic stress, but I hadn't any idea what was going on with it. No one talked about it, and no one knew much about it, but I was behaving, with all the usual weird behaviors that we all know. And I was on a business trip, and I go into the bar of this hotel it was in Oakland, California. And I couldn't believe it. I look down there, and I said, "That's Joseph Campbell at the end of the bar." And I go, it's almost like, asking the girl to go out on a date. It's like, God, if I go up to him and ask him if I can, buy him a drink, he's going to say, "Get out of my sight. I don't want to." So, but anyway, after I had one drink myself, I girded my loins and I went down to the end of the bar. And I said, "Mr. Campbell," I said, "I read your work. I'm so happy about it. Can I buy you a drink?" And he looks at me, he says, "Well, hell yes, I'm Irish, aren't I?" So I thought, okay, we're in, well, we started drinking, and then we had dinner together. And I started talking about the war. And one particular troubling incident that I talk about in the book is where I killed a North Vietnamese soldier looking him in the eye. This does not happen very often, as you well know. I mean, usually it's at a distance. And the short story of how that happened is that they were throwing hand grenades at us from above the hill, and we were throwing them back. And I finally figured out we were going to run out of hand grenades. So I told the 2 guys that I was with, I said, you toss the grenades, but I'm going to be there. And when they pop up to toss the grenades back, I'll get them with my M16. And I crawled up the hill and around, and I got into position on the ground, maybe 8 or 10 feet from the fighting hole. And one of the North Vietnamese soldiers was dead already. One of our grenades had connected. And this kid pops up with a grenade in his hand, with potato mashers. And suddenly our eyes locked. And it was, like I talk about how the enemy is a Haji or a Towelhead or a Gook or a Kraut, whatever you want. You do that so that you can kill them. That's not like something that's bad. That's the only way a decent person can do it. But when you look a kid in the eyes, he's a kid. He's not a Gook anymore. But he had a hand grenade in his hand, and I was like, and I started whispering out loud to him, "Don't throw it. I won't pull the trigger. Don't throw it. I won't pull the trigger." And I knew he didn't speak English, but I thought, well, maybe somehow I can communicate it to him. Well, he just snarled at me. I mean, rage, hatred. I mean, it was like, ooh. And he threw the grenade, and as the grenade was coming toward me, I shot him, and then the grenade landed, and luckily I survived that. I after a few drinks, I started to talk to Campbell about this, and I have to admit, tears started coming because I felt remorse. I mean, I killed a human being, and not a gook. And he said to me, he says, look, you had nothing to do with being born in America on the Oregon coast, entering the Marine Corps. He had nothing to do with being born in North Vietnam in some village and entering the North Vietnamese army. That is just the world of opposites. And you two ended up on the other side of the world of opposites. Nothing to do with you. What you had to do is do your side with a noble heart. Did you do it with a noble heart? And I broke down bawling, and I said, yes, I tried as hard as I could to do it with a noble heart. And he just did absolution. He just went like this and went, there you are. And I was like, oh, God damn, I mean, it was an amazing encounter. What a grace again. I mean, what are the odds of running into Joseph Campbell in the bar? It sounds like the start of a joke, but
oh fuck.
Yeah, I mean, but the noble heart is important because almost all of us try to do it with a noble heart, and to understand that the other side is trying to do it with a noble heart. We are in this world of opposites. I mean, some kid who's raised as a fundamental Muslim who believes that Satan is going to take over the world if we allow the Americans or the Brits or whoever it is, the Western Europeans, to force their way of life on us. I mean, he's trying very hard to stop that. And I think he's wrong. I think he's deluded and all that, but I don't blame him, and so I think that you have to do your bit on your side of the world of opposites with a noble heart. And that has helped me a lot in terms of putting my experiences into some kind of perspective. It wasn't up to me to declare the war. It wasn't up to me to be born in America. I mean, it just wasn't. But what is up to me is how I conduct myself. And I think that's where everybody should try and be. God bless Joseph Campbell.
Yeah, God bless him. I think part of it is understanding as well that, be it the Taliban or the North Vietnamese army, that if you'd have been like you're saying, if I'd have been born in Lahore in Pakistan or something, I probably would have ended up fighting against the British in Pakistan. Probably would have done. And it's acknowledging that it's a circumstance plays so much in, and like you're saying, you don't have a choice over your circumstances. And I have a lot of friends that beat themselves up over. I have friends that have wiped out families in minibuses and things like that in Afghanistan because they thought they were hitting Taliban and they weren't. And I said, so you didn't kill them because you thought you were killing the family. You thought you were killing the Taliban who were on their way to kill civilians or on their way to kill your friends. Your intentions were pure. And I think that that's a very important thing, not only when we're talking about combat, but just life in general. So, because we're all going to fuck something up.
Yes, absolutely.
Did you do it for the right reasons, or did you go into it the right reasons? And this is where it gets really murky. And this is why I do think about hanging politicians on a daily basis. I probably shouldn't say that because I'm probably setting myself up for a tribunal here in 15 years' time under Big Brother.
There'll be a knock on your door this afternoon.
Cal, you know what? There's enough evidence out there by now. There's a reason they chuck in artists first into the mass grave. Was we give away all our secrets.
Yeah, that's right.
But I genuinely believe, because you have to know, as a young man or woman or anyone that's a warrior archetype going away, you are acting out of the pure heart. You think that you are going there to do good. When I went to Afghanistan, when I went to Iraq, I had my doubts about what was going on, but I thought, we're doing this for the right reasons. Let's get it done. And then there's these people then that know that, and use your good intentions for not so good ends on their part.
Yeah.
And there's no consequence to it, because there used to be consequence to that kind of stuff. Mussolini at the end of the war, he had a date with some piano wire.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like there was a consequence for things. Now there isn't. And you've mentioned a few times, you said you're not a pacifist. I'm not. I think that anyone that thinks that you can live life with no violence they're coming from a very nice place, but it's a place of total fantasy.
Yeah.
But the truth is right now that I think there's a reason that militaries around the world in the Western world struggle to recruit now, because I think people have woken up to this. But that puts us in a dangerous place, because there's going to come a time and a place where war is the right thing to do. And we've kind of cried wolf on it, haven't we?
Yes. Good way of looking at it. Yeah. I don't think that the United States has been in a necessary war, one that preserves our way of life, since World War II. Korea was a pretty clear-cut invasion of a pro-Western pseudo-democracy. I mean, what was his name? Park was, kind of a dictator, but still it was pretty clear-cut that they were coming south en masse. And so, okay, but by the time we got to Vietnam, I mean, the North Vietnamese army wasn't storming the beaches at Malibu. I'm sorry. We weren't, and the Taliban isn't storming the beaches at Malibu either. I mean, so we're not threatened. And I think that the more you use the military when you're not threatened, and there's not your national survival at stake, I think you nailed it. It's crying wolf, and people are going to start to say, I don't want to be involved in that, because it's sort of like, I call it, the military is becoming the Praetorian Guard for the presidency. That is not right. I mean, the Congress is supposed to declare war. The last time the American Congress declared war, it's in the Constitution, for Christ's sake, was in June of 1942. Wow. America declared war against Romania, Bulgaria, and Hungary. And the reason was because they were allies of Germany. Mm-hmm. And the underlying thing was that Congress took it seriously. They said, well, we can't fight these countries unless Congress says we can. So Congress declared war. That was it. That was the last time. Mm-hmm. They don't want to take the responsibility. And I think they're cowards for abandoning that constitutional obligation. I hope they did it back. And you can see how it goes when you get a crazy man at the helm. I mean, if Congress was more powerful and still had its constitutionally granted powers and had been exercising them, I would feel a lot less worried about the United States going off the rails here. So where did I get off on this? Anyway, I just think that the whole thing about misuse of the military by politicians is absolutely true. And another reason is because by 1990, I think something like 2/3 of the Congress had all served in the military.
Wow.
And today it's like, I don't know, 20. Yeah. I mean, so they have no idea when they're saying, well, yeah, we're gonna go send the troops in and we'll stabilize Afghanistan, or we'll what stabilize? That means, like you said, that means making a mistake and killing a busload of kids. That's what you're doing, but they don't think that way because they've never been there.
And the language they use too. The language they use is deliberately sanitary.
Yeah,
totally. It's deliberately. And I'm not one of these people that believes you should have to serve in the military to hold political office. But I do think that if you hold political office, there's always a war going on somewhere. You can go and see war. Like, it's not hard.
Yeah.
And I believe if you are going to be in the upper echelons of politics, you should be going to see war up close and personal, because then you'd have a very different fucking opinion about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. There's an organization here called With Honor, started by a Marine named Ry Barcott, and it's a political action group that funds veterans races for Congress. and it funds Republican and Democrat 50-50. But they have to all be veterans. And the idea is that they know better, and they also know how to work toward a common goal, as opposed to just being so fractious like most civilian politicians are. They've been successful in 2018. They got, I think, like about 12 people elected. And I don't know how they're going to do this year, but they're working real hard. So so we're not the only ones with this idea.
Yeah, well, they had that Unity 2020 ticket, didn't they? Where it was like the idea would be it was like a bipartisan ticket, so that instead of, so basically you rotate through the position of, presidency with these different, so you have, they had Tulsi Gabbard on, who we've had on the podcast. She's still a reservist. She's a Democrat, and then there was Dan Crenshaw from the Republicans, the SEAL, and those guys are friends, and they talk, and they want to get things done, and they want to put America first rather than, one party or the other. But it comes back to that cheering on the hill.
Yeah.
It's this instinct in us. We want to cheer on the hill. Right. And it's like, right, well, this, our side won, cheering on the hill. Great. It's like, okay, well, what does that mean? What did it take to get there? And what's that going to cost you? There's a cost to all of this stuff. I've got so many more notes. Here. So I'm trying. I tell you what I want to do, because we've had a good laugh on this podcast, and I do think that's important. I do think it's always important you can go into some deep topics, because this is another thing as well. I think that some veterans out there feel that you have to feel sad about when you're reflecting on service is almost the same way that you're told by society, hey, you got to feel really bad when you shoot someone. That's not actually the truth. Like, there's a very different experience you had locking eyes with someone, like you said, extremely rare now. Most people, myself included, the people we shot or shot at, it was a target, and that's all it was. It was not a human being. But when we look at this stuff, we talk about this stuff, it's important to look at it and be able to bring out the bright side. So you are the man you are today because of combat. So what was the benefit? What was worth it? What are the things that you have in your life now that made it all worth it?
Friends. I have really good friends. I mean, if one of these guys called me from jail in Timbuktu, I'd be on an airplane, COVID or not, and I'd go down there and try and help him out. I mean, it's that sense of true friendship, because you don't have a friend until you have to rely on him for your life. And when you have a friend that's that deep, they last. So I think that's one thing that I've carried back. I still see these guys, and we every Marine Corps birthday I'm on the phone, and we laugh about stuff, and funny things that happen. Again, I remember, conversations with my father's generation. I'd be a little kid, listening in. Most of the stuff they talked about then, of course, it was cultural too, was funny things that happened. Remember that time we got drunk on Calvados in that cellar in France? And I remember that. And you couldn't find your way back, and you really got your ass shot off because that's right. It was all one big lark, right? But on the other hand, that's true. Mm-hmm. That did happen. That was funny, and I agree with you that, and I write about it quite honestly, there is no bigger rush than combat. I mean, I can remember killing a guy and getting him right between the eyes and feeling fabulous because it was such a great shot. God, right between the eyes. All right. Well, that's not something you want to crow about, except to maybe another group of veterans, which is what we're doing right now. But on the other hand, don't deny that. That's there. It really is there. My analogy for it is it's like crack cocaine. You tell a kid that crack cocaine's no fun, you're lying to him. On the other hand, you better tell him about what the costs of using crack are. Addiction and dereliction and yeah. No, you get the high, but you have the costs, and combat's the same way. But if we deny the highs, we're just kidding ourselves. I sometimes yearn for that the cleanness of it all. Take the hill. All right, how am I going to do that? Well, I got the New Jersey over here with 16-inch guns, and I've got A4s coming out of Da Nang, and I've got boom, boom, boom. God, the power, unbelievable! I wish I had that. But maybe it's a good thing I don't, because I probably would have napalmed that politician.
You could come here. We got non-extradition in Wales. You can go stay over here.
But yeah, I agree with you. You have to be honest about it. Look, I mean, if war weren't fun for some people, they wouldn't be doing as much of it. But you get to a certain level. I mean, I would guess the general up to through the politician level. Geez, look at this map, and how are we going to do this? It's like a big game again, isn't it?
Yeah, big game. And look, there's a reason people go back for multiple tours.
Yes,
you don't go. Like, I did multiple tours. I know a lot of people did listen and do multiple tours. You didn't come back off one and go, because you could have just gone, right, I'm done. No, you went back, and you went back.
Yeah,
there was something about it, and then something that doesn't really get talked about. Most of the guys, or not most of the guys, a large proportion of the guys that fought the war on terror are still in Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan as private contractors.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah. I've got friends, mate, who have been pretty much constantly deployed since 2003, 2006. Because they do 9 months of their year in Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria. They've been out there. They're like the armies of Alexander. They've gone. Yeah. No, but they've gone and they're not coming back.
Right.
But they'll have to come back. And this is what worries me about the veteran thing is we haven't seen the tip of the iceberg with the war on terror veterans yet, because a lot of them haven't come back. Like the guys that can't handle civilian life don't need to. They're over there.
They're over there.
Like they're over there right now. Now they're in the 40s. Like now they're late 30s, early 40s. They've probably got another 10 years in them. 10 years time, we're going to see these guys coming back.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a mess.
Well, that goes back to this warrior archetype. They are still identified with it. Mm-hmm. Instead of saying it's part of my personality, it is my personality. That's dangerous. And as long as you can keep going back, well, it's healthy. I mean, you want to be identified as a warrior when you're in the fight, because if you're not, you're not going to survive. But when you come back to civilian life, if you're still identified as a warrior, first of all, you're going to always be out of place. You're always going to feel like it's the wrong place in the wrong time. But that's not because civilian life is wrong. I mean, civilian life should be the norm. You should be coming back and saying, okay, I'm not a warrior anymore. It's going back inside. It's going to be back, I'll call on it if I need it, but it isn't me. And I think that identifying with that warrior is what keeps drawing people back, because it's comfortable. They know who it is. It's their identity, and they just don't want to shed it. You've got to shed it. If you're going to reintegrate into civilian life, you've got to put the warrior archetype back under control where it belongs. And, it's sort of like your sword, is put it in the sheath and, you use it when you needed it. But if you're identified with it, you're going to have trouble, or you're going to do a lot of drugs,
Yeah. I second that one. Right. So, I want to finish on one that can apply to everyone right now, veteran, civilian, whatever. What to you makes a happy day?
Oh,
well, what makes a good day? What are consistently like things that consistently make a good day for you?
I can tell you exactly, because I was surrounded in Vietnam and thought I was going to die. We were down to 7 bullets each, and they were going to hit us again, and I knew it was all over. Luckily, a chopper got in with some ammunition, and I remember thinking to myself, what would I miss from an ordinary day back home? And I remember looking at a piece of I grabbed some dirt and just looked at it and said, I'll never see dirt again. I mean, it was a weird moment, but boy, did it focus my mind. It was friends. I want to see my friends. I want to have a wife and kids, family that I like. And I want to be able to do work that I enjoy doing. And I want to be healthy. A good day is to see a friend, be with your family, do some work that you like doing, and be in good health. That's a good day. And God, thank God I was granted that.
Guys, thank you for listening today. Royal British Legion, thanks for making it happen. This doesn't happen without you. And Karl, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I really enjoyed that conversation. What can I say? I'm going to keep saying this, guys, because I don't think I say it enough, honestly, that none of this happens without you listening. None of this happens. You guys who are making posts, and if you're not making posts, I would really appreciate it if you do, to spread the word. I have had some messages in the DMs this week. I'm not going to lie, made me cry a little bit. There were some really nice things in there. When I started this podcast, to be honest, guys, I thought there was going to be, I thought it was just going to be a laugh and banter and stuff. I never realised that there would be people in there who it was like so like impactful for. And it's only reached those people because of what you guys have been doing, right? I sit here in the studio, but it doesn't go anywhere without you guys listening, without you guys spreading the word, right? Otherwise, it's just me talking to myself, right? So thank you for that. You guys that have been spreading the word, honestly now, you have been a part of bringing people back from the edge, right? So I want you to realise that, because it is so important, and you guys made that happen. So thank you. The Poppy Appeal, guys, needs our help. Let's get behind it. There's links, everything, again, down in the notes. Keep an eye out on social media. If you're not following us, at Veteran State of Mind. Like I said, we're going to be auctioning some stuff off on there. Let's get behind it, guys, and do everything we can to support it. And with that being said as well, please, if you enjoyed today's podcast and if you want to support Karl, which I would say I would personally thank you for, because he has helped not only me, but some of my best friends come through dark times. His books are that powerful that literally I think it's fair to say that reading Karl's books can change your life for the better. I really, truly believe that. Everything's linked up to him down the bottom. I really appreciate what you guys are doing. I'll catch you next time. I love you, bye.
You told me not to worry, and you wouldn't break my heart. You told me you were sorry, yeah, my whole world fell apart. You said it's not my fault, and yeah, I've never done you wrong. I'm grinding to a halt, now I can see you're moving on. I promised I'd get better, and I told you things would change. You keep me to the gutter, yeah, I'll never be the same. I've got to let you go, now live your life and spread your wings. And yeah, you put on quite a show and pulled the puppet strings. And are you sure that you don't want me? Remember all the pain, or maybe you should thank me. It's your loss and my gain. I'm leaving now forever, I won't hang my head in shame. But yeah, you've taken me for granted, and you should feel ashamed. You sold a dream to all of us, a dream that we'd all die for, a reason for us all to live and something we could fight for. I might just help a man up to his feet or hold a newborn, but no matter what I do, my hands remembering my rifle, yeah.
Life's hard, I know that, still wouldn't change shit. I wouldn't go back, yeah, I wouldn't go back. Feelings I hold back, memories fade, yeah, they go fast, yeah, they go fast. Good times that come and go, survive the highs and lows. Just take it step by step, I guess, yeah, I suppose. Good times that come and go, survive the highs and lows. Just take it step by step, I guess, yeah.